Welcome, welcome. I tried to fade that out. I don't know how well that works on your end. So good to see so many folks here, especially those of you with your cameras on. Hello. Welcome to the mixer. Hi. We are gathered here once a month. This is our last Wednesday of the month tradition, brought to you by the Office of Film and Music in Seattle. I want to take a moment to acknowledge that we are on Indigenous land, if you're in Seattle, the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people. So let us always remember who has been stewarding the land and make sure that we are in right relationship. My name is Alex Rose. I use she, her pronouns. And I support the creative economy here in Seattle, along with some of my colleagues here in the room. Megan Siebold, Chris Swenson, I see you. We've got some amazing speakers today, and we're going to be talking about money. Yay! And taxes. Double yay. So these are some topics that, can be a little sticky and a little intimidating sometimes. So we're hoping that through this event tonight and through the recording that we're creating of this event, that we'll be able to equip you with some good tips. Feel free to use the chat. I see some of you are already in there making your presence known. Yes, this is a chance not only to learn and develop some new skills or maybe expand some ways of thinking, but it's also a chance for us to connect with each other, which is important in these times. So don't be shy about putting your contact information in the chat or sending somebody a private message. We'll get into breakout rooms later so you can have some smaller group conversations. But yes, we're recording. Hope that's all right with you. If you have any difficulties, again, feel free to use the chat. And, when we do get into breakout rooms, we're not going to be recording those. So feel free to speak freely later on. I'm so thankful to be here with you. Thank you for joining us this evening. We are going to bring our speakers on stage here in a second. But just want to give you a sense of what the flow will be this evening. So we are going to hear about some tips for bookkeeping and accounting, just making sure that we're getting all our ducks in a row before we go ahead and work on taxes. So we'll talk about things you need to know related to taxes and tax status, and there will be time for Q&A after that. And then at the end, we'll have time for open networking. So with that, I would love to stop sharing my screen first. There we go. And I welcome our speakers, Denise Burnside and Nate Omdal. I would love for you to go ahead and introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about why you're so excited about this topic, what it means to you. And tell us a little bit about your background. So Denise, I'd love to start with you.
All right. I am Denise Burnside. I am from this area. I'm from Bremerton. And for me, my kind of gravitation towards finance really started when I was 14 and I was a runaway from home, and it kept me safe. It kept me out of foster care. It kept me from getting in trouble if I paid my bills first. And I didn't get yelled at by anyone. People left me alone. And as I became, I went to Montreal, I became a dancer. I studied dance at Concordia University in Montreal. That's where I started playing music. Like, I was the punk rock bass player that rolled into the back of the van and had my handwritten spreadsheets that would keep track of the band's finances. And I felt that just, I don't know, for my artistic pathway, having the finances coupled with my art really helped me to focus on what I wanted to do for a long period of time. And so get through kind of my early artsy fartsy days. I end up at the Showbox when it's first reopening as a club in the 90s. And no one really wants to do the business management side of things. Everyone wants to do the cool stuff. They want to do the booking. And I did coat check and loading and security and everything basically. But I had a great mentor that taught me how to do bookkeeping and start managing the Showbox. And from there, I became the CFO and COO of KEXP. And I now co-own the Clock Out Lounge, and I'm the executive director of Smash. And I do want to encourage anyone out there that is both artsy and has some sort of like interest in business, which I assume you're here because you want to learn about the business. Don't let that be it doesn't have to be in conflict of each other. I think of finance as being like an ecosystem. It's your roadmap to your artistic life. It tells you what you value, what you're working on, the way you bring in money or how you spend money. It's finances, but it is also what you do. It's every step you take of the day and how you spend your time and your dollars to make things happen. So if you can try to wash away some of the, I don't know, the Wall Streetness of it or whatever other negative things that we have about finances, maybe try to enjoy it and really see it as something maybe not fun, but really worthwhile embracing. Anyway, long story short, I'll go ahead, Nate.
Thanks,
Hang on
Denise.
just a second for the uninitiated. Can you explain what Smash is?
Oh, absolutely. Seattle Musicians Access to Sustainable Healthcare. So we are a new-ish organization in Seattle. We are here to support musicians staying and thriving in our region. So Smash helps keep musicians healthy by funding mental health therapy visits. Last year we launched them. This year we're increasing them from 8 visits a year to funding 12 sessions per year. We fund 1 doctor's visit and associated lab work per year. And we also have an amazing dentist that does comprehensive dental care. We hope in this year that we'll be able to restart our audiology clinics for musicians, in which we have a group of musicians come through a clinic in which they get testing, education on where their hearing is at, and custom molded earplugs. And we're working on a whole slew of services to increase the well-being of musicians and allow them to maybe keep living in our region with how expensive it is to live and be healthy.
Such important, amazing work. And I know that especially now, it's such a benefit to our community. So thanks for that, Denise.
Yeah, I know I've struggled with healthcare when I was young and a musician and a dancer. And so I hope that we can, well, and not young or old, whatever age you are, but I know that I've had my struggles and still really struggle finding doctors, working things out. So I think it's a lived experience that makes me excited to be a part of helping other people succeed in healthcare.
Wonderful. All right, Nate, you're up.
Cool. My name is Nate Amdahl. I am the lead organizer for the Musicians Association of Seattle, Local 76-493, or the Musicians Union, as we may be referred to out there on the street. I think listening to Denise talk, aside from being a dear friend of mine now, we don't have a ton in common in our relationship to finances beyond playing the bass in bands, I think, because I did not start out as a punk rock bass player that with a book of notes and spreadsheets in the back. I'm a band nerd. So I came through playing, jazz bands and stuff. I started on trombone. I'm a double bassist now. I graduated from Cornish. That's sort of how I found my way into the whole music game, was just, what am I going to do with this degree that I have been paid a lot of money for now? I need to start figuring out a way to earn some money with this. So just incredibly feel fortunate that out of college, I was able to plug in with some really, really talented, but also really savvy young business people that had a lot of a lot of positive energy about looking outside of what the stereotypical career path might be for a musician. And I suppose that just sort of looking around the industry with as wide of a lens as I could was sort of what led me to the Musicians Union in the first place. I think like a lot of us, I could say that I had a string of gigs that did not go the way that I wished that they would have financially. And as we were sorting out a predicament in front of a club one evening, we all discovered the power of collective action. And I looked into the unionism stuff really pretty much the next day. And to make a really long story short, that I think makes some sense for why we're here today, it really gave me a really great opportunity to learn from some musicians that, not just from our region, from across the country, that had some really smart and practiced ways of looking at finances and being a band leader, especially with the Musicians Union. I know it's just an association of band leaders. So you're going to get a lot of really savvy tips and tricks from that community. And what I've brought hopefully to share with you today is a selection from a new program that we're launching for freelancers, but a lot of which is focused on making sure that musicians just starting out understand what they're getting into as a musician, or as we'll talk about soon, as a self-employed person. So that'll where I'll stop for today.
But you're also on something called the Seattle Music Commission, right?
I believe so. I'm also on a board of something called Smash too. So
how about that?
Yeah, I'm really happy that we're all here together. I think this is a really dynamic team, and I hope I'm not stealing anybody's thunder. Chris or Alex or Megan, please feel free to jump in here. But there's a lot of really dedicated people out there that are working as we speak to make sure that the creative economy, the music industry, is as strong and vibrant as it can be. And I'm really happy to be here with Alex and Denise and Megan and Chris to talk about all that stuff today.
Perfect. Thank you. And for those of you who, are not part of the music industry, just know that like what you're going to hear today applies to you. It's not just for musicians. It's not just for, sound folks. It is for anyone who is doing creative work, particularly those who are doing it on a freelance basis. So with that, I'm going to start sharing my screen again. And Denise, I invite you to dive into this presentation once I can make it happen.
And if Alex, you or anyone, I'm not probably great at keeping an eye on the chat while trying to think. So go ahead and stop me if there's timely questions that you want to do it in the middle of the presentation rather than wait till after.
Sounds good.
All right. So bookkeeping and budgeting. Oh, yes.
The joys.
Oh, the joys. And I have to say that, it isn't like doing the actual bookkeeping isn't a huge joy of mine. It's more that I do love when it's done well. Like if you take a creative approach to setting up your numbers and how you input your numbers, when you run reports, they'll actually tell you a story. So though maybe you're not at a place now where you've picked up software or worked on it. But as we run through this, kind of the goal is to go from maybe just trying to find your bearings, thinking of when you set up your chart of accounts, like set it up in a way that it speaks to you. So when you run reports, it's like, oh, that's what I'm doing. I did this last month. That's what this correlates to. So it's really thinking about finance as a way to tell you a story about what you're doing. So go ahead and move to the next slide. So first of all, if you're starting out, because even if you're exploring doing it, you're already doing it, you're exploring doing it, whatever, just start with some good practices of making it easy on yourself. So if you muddle all your expenses with your personal stuff, that means by the time you need to figure it out or look at it or think about it or do your taxes, it's going to be such a pain that you are going to swear and cuss and kick. And it's going to suck, right? So rather than having it suck, start out by either getting a separate credit card that you can charge everything on. Some banks with their debit cards, like if you can get a separate debit card, that you can run a report on that debit card in your your bank statements and look at those things. So there's some way that you don't have to spend a lot of time and a lot of effort to keep your expenses separated. So ideally you open up a business bank account, you get a separate credit card. So any check you write, any credit card expense or debit card, it's all going through one place. So it's not hard to keep it organized. When you go out and buy stuff, receipts are easy to lose. So when you're sitting at the counter and they hand you that receipt, stop for a second, write on what it's for, have a separate, like if you have a purse or like a messenger bag, whatever it is, think of like dedicating a pocket to business crap. Like just have a place you can shove stuff. Maybe it's in your car, it's a bag in your car, a box in your car, whatever it is, just make it easy. Just don't mix it with other stuff because then you won't want to go through it later. You just won't. I know, at least that's my experience with myself and people that I know. If you can get yourself to start using an electronic bookkeeping, like they have a lot of easy ones now that are for creative professionals, like FreshBooks. If you think about QuickBooks, maybe you've tried it before, you've hated it, maybe look at FreshBooks or look at Xero or some of the other ones out there. A lot of them are phone or iPad or tablet based, not just computer. So on the go, you could take pictures of things and input things in there. And it doesn't mean at the end of the year again that you're cussing and screaming and kicking. Because believe me, even though I like finances, when I do this to myself, I cuss and kick too. So I'm with you. So you're starting out, you want to run your business. You might want to be more thoughtful, create a budget, etc. No matter what it is that your business is, really think of what are your key performance indicators, your KPIs. Because if you spend your time and effort on those things, both your key performance indicators in revenue and expense, and spend most of your time looking at how those numbers are performing, you're spending your time in a better place than watching expenses that don't have a lot of effect on you. That's kind of how I manage my time. What are my things that I worry about? What are the things that I don't worry about? And I just let them be on automatic payment. And I know that they're going to be there. No time spent, super easy. So if you are new to this industry, and whichever industry that you're in, and you don't know it, you're going to have to educate yourself. And so whether you want to set up your bookkeeping, build a budget, build a business plan, you need to do investigation. So both on the revenue expense side, do as much as you can online before you go and ask people. So then when people meet up with you, you have questions to ask based on research that you've done, and your knowledge will build more substantially because you've ingested it on your own. And then when you get feedback from someone else, they're not throwing you a lot of information that you don't have any foundation to build your business intelligence on. So there are some industries have some standard like expense to revenue ratios, like take the restaurant industry. There's actually a lot of information on that industry online. And you'll see a lot of basic things like out of your revenue, 30% should be labor, 30% should be cost of goods sold, 30% should be occupancy. And so it leaves you with 10% net profit. And if you don't understand what your revenue and expenses are, that 10% profit can be whittled away really quickly if you have surprise expenses that you didn't expect and you weren't tracking and looking at how you were spending your money. Then 6 months down the road, you wonder why you're net negative, you can't pay your bills and you're not doing okay. So take a little time in advance to just do some Googling, chat with your friends. If your friends are willing to tell you, like if you know people in the industry, don't be afraid just to ask for their guidance, their expertise. You want them just to talk to you. You should come with a set of questions from your research, but really ask about their expertise. Query them on What are the things that they feel that has made them successful? What are the things that what keeps them up at night? What do they worry about? Think about like a kind of inquisitive, open-ended questions that you can hear things that you might not have even had the knowledge to ask the question about. And then if you have specific questions that are like granular about, well, what are the expenses? Since maybe you don't know, maybe they can like just list things off and you can take notes, or they can email that to you. Don't be afraid to ask, so you can put your best foot forward when you're going into business for yourself. So another thing that I think that we don't often spend much time on as creatives, and it really, maybe when you're first starting your business, if it's small and you don't have a lot of expenses, maybe it's okay that you don't understand your fixed versus variable. But if you're doing something larger or you're looking to greatly expand, it's really good to know what your fixed expenses are. And those things are the amounts that don't change every month. So your rent is often a set amount, though sometimes there are definitely landlords have percentage of revenue if you're in a retail situation. But think about what's fixed. So those, those are ongoing, and you have to make more than that every month to make money. And then you'll have variable expenses. So your cost to produce something, whether you're making a greeting card or you're selling a glass of booze, you will have a cost of that good that you're selling. So being able to look at it, how many customers need to buy my greeting card? How many customers do I need to buy drinks to pay off both my fixed and my variable costs as I grow from lower income to higher income? When can you afford to hire another employee? Knowing these expenses will help you think smartly and know, say if you hire a new employee, how far you have to increase revenue to start to be able to fully pay off that new expense and start being profitable again. All right, I think I'm ready for the next page.
I was curious about this negotiable expense. Can you give an example of that?
Yes, I will. So, and I don't think it's just in the creative industries, but I think a lot of times contracts are intimidating. There are certain companies and certain times that there is no negotiations. Take, for instance, your Apple, like when your phone says you have to agree to something, there's no negotiating with Apple. They're not going to change that. But a lot of times, contracts are more negotiable than you think that they are. So if it doesn't suit your needs, if you don't think it makes sense, sit down with the rep and talk through that and come with some ideas, but also be open to asking questions so you can learn from the rep what is negotiable and what isn't. A lot of times, like I said, if you just take the time and you don't just automatically think, oh, they won't negotiate with me, find out first. There's no reason. It's business, right? A business conversation should be expected, and they should expect you to ask questions, and then they can answer them, and you can decide from there what you can and can't negotiate with each vendor that you're working with to get the best situation for the way that you do business. And I think that's just, anyway, I feel that it's really intimidating, and I know that sometimes it's hard to think that you're questioning someone, and you're not. I mean, you are, but you're not questioning like their integrity or that it's right or wrong. You're really just having a business conversation with someone else, and you'll learn more. They'll know what your business is about and what your needs are, and they can better serve you in the future by having that conversation up front. All right. So this is, I really recommend making a budget. Even from when I was a dancer in university and learning how to be a choreographer and work through the creative process, journaling, writing things down was a huge component of figuring out what my process was. And I've taken like the idea of journaling to budgeting, and not just putting it in numbers, but writing a narrative for yourself. What are you trying to do? And even if it's, say you need to make so many cold calls a month or a week, you write these things out. If you think you're going to make this amount a week or a month or a quarter? How are you going to get to that? Go ahead and write all this down, both, like I said, both in narrative and in a dollar amount. So this budget is a living item for you. It's something that helped you put one foot in front of the other to succeed at raising the revenue you think that you can and should do, as well as knowing what expenses are there. And sometimes just going through that process, you'll have some aha moments. You'll question yourself like, oh, this made sense to me when I talked to my friends about it, but now that I'm writing it down, I'm confused and I need to go ask some more questions to my friends that are in this industry. So do take the time and reflect on this with yourself and allow it to be a creative process. Pain in the butt, but a creative process.
I love that.
Yeah,
Tap
I
in-
mean, it
tap
is.
into your creativity.
I have a really weird, and I know because people have rolled their eyes at me because I'm like, oh, finances can be so creative and it can be a really great reflection of who you are. And I truly do believe that. And I think that if you even take that to your personal life, like what can you cut out? What is negotiable in your life? What do you spend money on that gets you to your goals rather than distracts you from where you want to go? And, you can make those choices. Here, I'm going to just look at my notes to see what I might have totally forgotten to say. Okay. I didn't say everything exactly as I wrote it down, of course, but I've covered things. And I do think like when I talk about like all these things of think about it as your personal roadmap to success, whether in your life and business, your home life, it's because it's all together, right? We spend a lot of time on work and we want to make money so we can have the quality of life outside of work that we're striving for. So do consider your relationship with money. How do you beat yourself up when you don't have what other people have? I don't know, like what do you beat yourself up for? What are you proud of? And take some time to work through that as you think about what your budget is for work, what your budget is for home, and how you journal about that and write your narrative about what you can change and what you can do. So if you have a budget that you've mapped out, and ideally it's great if it's on a monthly basis. So every month you can have a sit down with yourself, with your business partner, and look at how am I doing? How are we reaching those goals that we mapped out? Did we realize completely that some of the things we thought were key aren't our key drivers and we need to focus on some other aspects? Like maybe you thought just good customer service would be enough, but that's not working. So you have to think about your marketing materials. You've got to think about, how you're networking within the industry to have better connection with people that are bringing more business your way. I mean, you have to figure it out for yourself because each industry and each person individualize what is the kind of the sweet sauce of your business. But be good to yourself. Know that you're not going to be good at everything. You're not going to get everything right, but you can reflect on that. And that's part of your growing process, both as an artist and as a business owner. Yes, and resources, the internet, human beings, books. I just, don't feel bad about asking for help, about looking and asking for resources. It can be amazing what someone will, share with you if you just ask and do some due diligence and connect with your community. All right. That's my presentation.
Thank you, Denise. Any questions for Denise before we talk about taxes? That was so great. I think you covered it all. Love thinking about, how we take care of ourselves by taking care of our money and how creativity can show up in that process. When it comes to taxes, there are creative ways to approach that as well. So we'll hear from Nate about,
Before
oh,
Denise gets too
yep.
far away. Hi, my name's Sky. Sorry, Nate. Sorry. Uh, uh, so I'm trying to do a mental game with myself, and as a creative, money was what business people did,
Mhm.
and it was evil. And so I'm trying to flip the script, write a different story, and consequently think of money as gas in the sense of the fuel to get me to the next thing, to the next gig. And again, also embracing a gig economy. I've been freelance for 30 years, a tempted business owner. um, so that's where, is that a healthy attitude to have that? Thinking of money as gas, is it just a numeric rather than a fact? I mean, rather than a house or a car or something?
Yeah, I mean, I do think, I mean, that is my attraction to finances, like really, even though I was using it as a tool to get through life previously to the Showbox, because the Showbox was so brand new, like I think it was like 96 when I joined there, and we were just opening back up and had big plans. And I was like, well, we have all these ideas and we have all these different people doing this creative stuff, and we're doing it at the seat of our pants and super crazy. And a way to bring us all back together was like, okay, well, how did our efforts, our time, which is money, because we want, a salary, want to be paid. And how did what we do, like understanding what someone did and what that effect was, and kind of looking at it, well, great, we get to go more months, we can expand. Oh, that thing that you did, that seemed to spur money. Don't exactly, because marketing, right? That's often one of those mysteries. But it's like, but I did it, and we see it. We see this effect, and it is, and gas, or whether you see it as food, like the you're doing it for a reason, right? You might love it, but you do need to pay to live. Unless you live for free and you don't have to buy any of your food or pay your utilities, we are strategically working for a life. And so I don't know, like I do, like I'm like, that's where I'm like, it's your roadmap, it's your ecosystem. And if you spend money a certain way, like every month, and you look at that and you're like, I had no idea I was spending so much on
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z. And you're like, I could change that. I could really like put more effort into something else, or put more money into something else that might have a better return on investment, to where I make more money and I can be more comfortable.
I think as you were talking, I realized what I'm struggling with, and we'll have a longer conversation in breakout. I've created over 100 hours of content in the last 10 months online because the world got flat and I had a video production abilities, and I've spent like zero by comparison. And I gave myself permission because I didn't have to, I couldn't get access to money. I couldn't get access to equipment. I couldn't get but the creative process was able to be happening. So look forward to talking to you later.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sky. All right, as long as there are no other questions, Nate, you're on.
All right, cool. Well, thanks, Denise. That was really great. I was just gonna say, I can definitely attest to filing creative taxes. That is definitely a thing that happens out there. Um, so my presentation is gonna focus a little bit more on just some basic nuts and bolts that happens in the creative industry. There's a lot of myths or misnomers or half truths that kind of float around, and I kind of tried to create a quick selection from a larger class that our union is trying to put into the community, that will delve more into the specifics of deductions and filings that are industry specific. But I'd like to start today by focusing on federal taxes and how we really are all the same, if you really want to ask Uncle Sam. So Alex, can you hit the button there? So when it comes to filing your taxes, one thing that we try to dispel is that, as far as the feds are concerned, you're employed or you're self-employed. You can call yourself a freelance musician, a gigging musician, an indie musician. You can be classical, you can be hip hop, you can play Americana, you can be a studio, you can be a freelance. It doesn't matter. You are either employed or you are self-employed. And really those totally don't fall down industrial lines. You are a self-employed sound engineer, or you are a employed sound engineer. You are a self-employed choreographer, or you are an employed choreographer. That's a distinction that I think in our field sometimes gets lost. And I would like to just sort of double back on that, because as a self-employed worker, you need to understand your implications in filing self-employment tax, in filing so that you can avoid a self-employment tax, that you are responsible for estimated quarterly taxes, and that there are ways that you can offset certain costs. I think for me, I started out, I mentioned I'm a jazz musician. I started out just looking to gig, and all of this information admittedly was pretty far away from things that I was concerned about when I was in my early 20s. As I would imagine a lot of us would attest to being in the same place. And you're all about trying to advance your art and have a good time and make music with your friends, in my case. And I really could have stand to have understood some things about paycheck deductions and quarterly filing a little sooner than I did. So next slide, please. So I think one of the main things that I'd like to point out on your pay stub is how the federal tax deductions work. The Federal Insurance Contribution Act, or FICA, is the federal law requiring employers and employees to withhold up to 3 separate taxes from your annual earnings. FICA refers to the taxes withheld for Social Security. These payments are matched by your employer, but not your contracting agent or department. The deductions total 15.3% of your net earnings, and they are either split with your employer or you pay them all yourself as a self-employed person. So that breaks down to 6.2 split 2 ways towards Social Security, 1.5 split 2 ways for Medicare, and a 0.9 Medicare surcharge tax. And that really only applies when you're making a pretty healthy income. So maybe not such a concern for those just starting out in their performing arts career, but it's out there and you should know about it. So just to reiterate again, everybody pays this, no matter how you earn income in this country. Again, to make a big list, you can be self-employed, you can be employed by a company, you can work for a nonprofit, you can work for any kind of corporate structure. These taxes are still coming out. It's just the deal that you have set up with your employer that makes the bottom line look different worker to worker. So next slide. Thank you. Something that's a really big deal in our field is estimated quarterly taxes. As an artist and creative worker, you must make quarterly payments either through withholding or estimated tax payments. These quarterly payments go towards other taxes you will owe, such as self-employment and an alternative minimum tax. If you don't pay enough tax through withholdings or with estimated payments, you'll be charged a penalty. You may also be charged a penalty if your estimated tax are late, even if you are due a refund when you file your tax return. So that means if you have a side job on top of your music income, as many, many folks do, the one hand does not wash the other. And if you're late on your gigs, it will come out of your job. So if after you apply all of your deductions from all your forms of employment to your estimated tax payment and you owe more than $1,000, you will be estimated to pay quarterly taxes. If you fall under that threshold, you're off the hook. So $1,000 is sort of one target that you can set for yourself financially. If you're not making any money from your creative endeavors, you don't need to file quarterly. But if you start, for musicians, teaching privately can be a actually fairly lucrative way to earn a living if you're working with a lot of students, and that money can start to accumulate pretty quick, and you will cross that $1,000 awfully fast. I also would note that if you are subcontracting and you are doing something that we've all done, which is trying to do your friends a favor and maybe saving them a little paperwork, that's all on you. So that's one gig and you're in for the whole boat. So just sort of some things to keep in mind about quarterly. It's really difficult in this region, in my opinion, given how seasonal the work can be with the weather and just some of the related opportunities for myself. I mentioned a number of times, I'm a jazz musician, which makes sort of the wedding winery kind of a thing something that I really was looking to in the past to earn a really big chunk of my income. And that work isn't there all the time. So it did make saving for quarterly payments a challenge. So one of the questions that sort of came up in as we were planning this was to sort of talk about maybe some financial targets or some benchmarks that artists and business owners could look to sort of indicate that things were going in a positive way. And for me, I would say if you can keep that quarterly schedule from your gig payments consistent, that's a really good indicator that you are doing some really positive things to have a regular cash flow. As Denise was talking about, fixed expenses, you can start to track those. You'll start to see them as, so I that would be probably something I would put out there, just something to consider. When you can take 15 to 20% of your paychecks of your gigs, stick them in a bank account, and feel secure that you're not going to need to get at that money again, you're probably doing fairly well for people that are starting a business out in the creative field. So next, please. Next slide. Was that it? Okay, I guess that's it. So
penalties.
Oh, penalties. I'm sorry. I'm talking and looking at a screen at the same time, and the brain and the eyes aren't connecting there. Penalties. So this is another one. Thank you, Alex. If you fail to file your estimated quarterly taxes, you will be assessed a 3% penalty. That is often referred to as the self-employment tax, which really isn't a tax. So that's kind of something, when I was doing some research and trying to prepare to give this presentation, that's a term that doesn't yield a lot of results because there is no self-employment tax. It's a penalty for failing to file quarterly. You will also be assessed a 0.5% lateness penalty each day you fail to file quarterly. That's not a lot, but if you don't do it the whole year, each quarter keeps compounding, and at the end of the year, it does start to turn into a little bit of a chunk of change. So just to kind of put that in some realistic terms, if you anticipate earning $20,000 in combined self-employed income, that works out to about $600 in annual penalties on top of what you'll owe for just being a worker in this country, which was the 15.32. So that can start to look at, as we're going to see, I think it summarizes it in another slide, around 18%. And you might be asking yourself, that's a lot of taxes to pay. I'm not sure I would sign on to a loan for that amount of interest. So why, that seems steep. Is there anything that can be done about that? I hope there's another slide. I meant there to be another slide.
There is. Before we move on to that, we have a question from Elliot in the chat.
Oh, great.
What about folks who are behind on paying taxes currently? Can you speak to that at all?
Well, I suppose I can, in that I owe the IRS some money too. So it happens. I can't speak to any hard and fast ways to getting out of debt with the IRS. That would be a conversation for a tax attorney. I would say, from my experience working at the local, it's probably best to try to get a handle on your finances and at least filing, so that this doesn't become a really big problem. There was a slide that I didn't select for this presentation that maybe I should have or could have, that mentions that your earning career window, as far as the IRS is concerned, is a 35-year window. And that can start and end. It's assessed at the greatest earning window of your employment life. So that can start anywhere. And if you are fairly young and not necessarily on top of this, you aren't in as dire a situation that somebody maybe in their middle ages that is just trying to get a handle on this, as things will start to your greatest earning year will be different, much different, the later you start with this process. So I would just encourage everybody to do what they can to start at least getting a handle on this aspect of your career, because it can be, as we all know, like, no, it's no fun to owe the IRS a big chunk of change. So I'm sure, I know the Musicians Union, we have a lot of members and experienced folks that would love to do what we can to help. And I think there's a couple other folks that are going to be on the panel as we wrap up that could probably speak to that as well as I could. I hope that answers your question. Something that you might be able to do, perhaps if you feel like you might be starting to slide down that, is to start looking for Payroll Solutions. So just to explain how that works a little bit, next slide, please. All right, so the benefits of using a payroll service is that so much of the work that is done in the creative industry does not accumulate towards unemployment or any other social safety net program, because it happens, quote unquote, off the books. I mean, this is the gig economy that I think so many of us are familiar with. So often those social safety net programs are for qualifying W-2 employees. We've all just witnessed how difficult it was for musicians, artists, and other creative freelancers to access unemployment benefits during the pandemic. That just is the way that those programs work. They count your work hours, not your not work hours. And we're behind the 8 ball, so to speak, in that a lot of our hours are not counted as such. So if you're lucky enough to be doing work that is around a payroll service, some of the benefits that you will experience are you'll get a W-2 wage, which is an independent freelancer that can work with a payroll company to establish an employer of record, which creates a W-2 wage. It also, because you are earning W-2, it eliminates the need to file quarterly. Quarterly filing is for 1099. If you're not making 1099 income, you don't need to worry about it. Since the income earned is I just said that. So no self-employment taxes, same deal. Since it's not considered self-employed income, it's not subject to any penalties. You can ask for pension contributions or other withholdings that can be set up with the payroll company to offset other earnings. So if you are a club musician, I'm going to use that as an example that's close to my heart. A lot of us find ourselves doing maybe 3 to 5 separate smaller jobs. 2 or 3 would be 1099, and maybe the other 1 or 2 would be W-2. You could withhold from your, say, private lessons that you're teaching to compensate for the income that you're still going to file on a Schedule C for your nightclub work. That kind of balancing is a tool that a payroll service can offer, given that it's, its whole purpose is to track those finances. And again, this is all about creating a paper trail that makes applying for social safety net programs such as unemployment and workers' comp possible. They are looking at your hours worked, and if you are not working those hours, unfortunately, you don't fit into some of the criteria for those programs. The threshold in Washington is 680 annual hours W-2 wage earned at a single employer. There's any number of legislative efforts that are looking to modernize that a little bit, such as compounding hours. You can take a couple of W-2 pay stubs and together they could access something. So those are the kind of things that labor and a lot of creative industry advocates are really advocating for. Washington Filmworks and Amy Lillard comes to mind if you were to think about somebody that is really looking out for creatives in a massively huge capacity. So I just can't thank her enough for that. So
Yes, thank you, Amy. I don't know if you're here, but we love you and thank you.
I think there's one more slide.
Tell them what they can do now.
All right. So sort of to summarize, some things that you can do is you can look for W-2s. Look for opportunities that give you W-2 and not a 1099. And if you work as a 1099, realize that you are responsible for all of your federal tax payments instead of splitting them with your employer. You want to get it in writing. Consider asking for a contract when you can, which can formalize your employment structure, for lack of a better term. You can designate withholdings. You can make sure pension is contributed to or not, whatever the terms are. That's fine. It's up to between you and your employer. You can get on payroll. If you have an employer who's willing to do this, try to find a company that can process the payment. At the Musicians Union, we do have a payroll company and a number of contracts that we could set you up, service contracts that we could set up to make it so that we could get your checks processed through our payroll and you won't have to worry about accounting for them. There are a number of private companies that can do the same thing. It's a little harder out there on your own, but they definitely do exist. You can try to set yourself up. If you can organize a payroll contract and set aside contributions, it just makes April easy. And I think that's probably one of the things a lot of us were looking to do when we attended the conference today, was just what can we do to make our lives a little bit simpler? Because as we all know, being a creative is not simple. So, all right. Just to summarize it all, I threw a lot of numbers at you. So just to give it to you all in one place, here are some of the key numbers to remember. No matter how a creative chooses to label themselves, blah, 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 big band, classical, combo, solo, pit, blah, 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 you name it, the IRS considers you self-employed. If you choose to only do gigs, then the burden of record keeping is solely on you. As your career grows and develops and your income goes up, your responsibility to manage your finances will increase. I think this is the big one. The federal tax rate for a freelancer is 18.3% if you fail to pay your estimated quarterly payments. Just to highlight that, somebody that works at a traditional W-2 for a W-2 employment situation is probably only going to be paying around 9% in federal taxes. So you'll feel that at the end of the year. Many union offices like across the AFM have Payroll Solutions. Other labor groups do as well. If you are a Soundtech, IATSE, it would be the office to look up. Actors have SAG-AFTRA Equity. Any number of, they're set up, locals are set up to want to help you and to try to achieve these goals for you. So please don't hesitate to ask how they can help. And if you want to yell at me personally, please contact me, Nate at local76-493.org. If you Google for Seattle Musicians Union, we're the top hit, and it's pretty easy to find us from there. So I would love to talk to you and hopefully this COVID stuff will be in the rearview mirror soon enough, and I can take you out for a sandwich or something like that, because I'd love to do that.
Thank you, Nate. Yes, applause all around. There was a question in the chat earlier about that $1,000 threshold you mentioned. Is that quarterly? Is that annually? Can you clarify?
Annual.
Annual. Okay.
So it's a pretty low threshold for the course of a year. I think as a band leader might call that 1 gig is really all it's going to take before you're looking at seeing that threshold. So this is stuff that is relevant to you pretty quick, whether you're paying attention to it or not. So I hope, I really want to thank everybody for listening through that, because to be perfectly honest, this is part of a new curriculum that we're trying to offer to our community partners. And if you represent an organization and would like to see the rest of that presentation, along with, we have 2 others, if I can give a quick commercial. We have a introduction to contracts that we go through definitions, terms, some exercises and writing clauses. And we also have a resumes is what we're sort of calling it. There's a guest in here named Valerie Tung, who's one of our board members, and she was nice enough to join us here today, who helped put together a really fabulous class on the narrative side of describing what you do. I think you can get asked to describe in any number of contexts your art and what you're trying to do, from a grant application to a performance program. That's when I get asked for all the time. Hey, can you give me a bio for the program? I'm like, oh man, I got to come up with something to say about myself now. And that's as many words as you need it, because inevitably it's a different length every time someone makes that request. But then also, as we all know, it's COVID, and money's a little tight sometimes, and a lot of us are looking for supplementary income right now. So how do you look at what you've done for your whole career as a performer that has produced some amazing soft skills, and how do you talk about yourself, just so we can all hang in there and get through this together? So that would be my little spiel.
Yeah, the elevator pitch is so critical.
Gotta have it.
Folks who can articulate what they bring to the table, leave an impression. So I love that you're offering that. Is there a link or something you can throw in the chat to help people find out more about that?
It'd probably just be my email address, because like I said, this is curriculum that we put together once we realized how thorough COVID was changing our industry. And to be perfectly frank, you are one of the first audiences to see some of the tax information that we've putting together. So I hope it makes some sense, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share it with you all. And if, like I said, if you represent an organization or are a part of one that any of those would be useful, please don't hesitate to email me and we can set it right up.
Thanks, Nate. I'm just looking at the chat here. I see that Christy has a question about Schedule C. What is it and why is it important? Can either of you speak to that?
Well, a Schedule C, I'll start, and Denise, please pick this up if you hear me flying off course here. Schedule C is the piece of paper that you report your gig income on. It's a big category of what is on that form, and it's, the research for this, it was not lost on me at how large some of these topics some of these forms are meant to cover, and how small a topic some of these forms are meant to cover. And the Schedule C is a pretty big one, because it's miscellaneous income, if I'm not mistaken. And that's just the most freelance workers end up filing their a Schedule C along with their 1099 or their irregular April filing. And it's just sort of the two combined to make up what you report to the IRS. So, and that's also where your deductions would be listed. It's sort of one big sort of, since you do this, it goes here form. Correct me if I'm mistaken, please.
Yeah. Like if you had a sole proprietor LLC, like basically if you're not getting if a CPA isn't providing you other documents to use, if you have business income, you are likely putting it on a Schedule C.
Not to be confused with the schedule whatever for like gambling earnings and that kind of stuff. It's all sort of income that you didn't earn at your regular job.
Yeah.
So they all have a form.
And if you like, you know, I used to use TurboTax when my life was less complicated, because it will walk you through, it'll ask you, did you get a form this? Did you do this? Did you have business income? So if you want to use CPA, H&R Block, TurboTax, etc., like just, know that other people are paid a lot of money to figure out how to do these things. And there's now a lot of software that will help you walk through each question in each step. It's just a matter of having your expenses organized so they can go in the right slot as you walk through this tax form pain in the butt.
Yes. Yeah, Denise, I don't know if you were looking at the chat or if you and Jane were just on the same wavelength, but she had a question about TurboTax in there. I also know that our local United Way offers free tax assistance to people making, I think it's less than, there's like a certain threshold. But check out that link I threw in the chat, because they are doing some really, really amazing stuff for our community, and more people should be taking advantage of that. Jane is talking about gambling earnings and her whole career feeling like a gamble.
Except you might actually pay less taxes on your business income than you're gambling. So,
What other questions do we have? Well, I think at this point, we
have one. Looks like Shai has one.
Coming again as a video editor, I was the last one to touch the product, but there was always a front office that dealt with all this, and I was the employee or the contractor. Now, at my age, at my career, I am at the head of the story and starting a business. So I like unions, but I don't want to not like unions. I like organized, collaborative thing. So I do have some questions about being the business person, and how do we work? How how do we work together? And how is a creative process a we process rather than a us and them? Because it feels like if you can get an employer to pay for half of it, then make sure that happens. And I'm going, yeah, now I'm the guy on the other side of that conversation. It's not fun over here.
So, Sky, have you started your own business, and have you incorporated in any way?
Yes, and we're an LLC, and got the bank account, got the partnership, got the contract, and we're starting to need help, and consequently wanting to collaborate with the minimal resources we have. At the same time, like as I said, for starting businesses that will be employing other people, this would be a new step for me. Where is that workshop?
I'm not sure where the workshop is, but I would consider, like, if you have, whether it's friends or you have a lawyer and CPA, so because you need the way that you incorporate your business. So a sole proprietor, a partnership LLC, you're not necessarily the owners aren't allowed to run their payments through payroll. But if you were, say, an S Corp or a C Corp, and the structure of your business allows, you could, when you run payroll, you as a business owner could also be on payroll. So therefore the business pays more of your taxes than you having the brunt of the self-employment taxes. It is really like, so say, in businesses that I own or run, the structures don't necessarily allow it for the owner to always run through payroll. So sometimes you just have to know that you're going to pay those unemployment taxes because your structure doesn't allow for it. So it's the legal entity, which is the lawyer side, and the tax side, which is the CPA side. When you can understand those together, then you're best off in your planning. But anyway, in your business, you might be able to be an S Corp or a C Corp and set up payroll for yourself and your employees, and the business can take some of the burden of those taxes.
I suppose my quick answer to that would be, it's a two-part answer. One would be you should look up the L&I definition of employment, because if you are looking for help in your small business, that's a great sign. That means that you're growing. You should understand at what point the state declares that you are employing these workers. And that's not anything that you or I or anybody in this Zoom has any say in determining, but that's something that you as a business owner should look into. I would also say that if you can describe what you're looking to hire, if you're looking to hire a creative worker, and you wanted to work in good faith on a contract, there would be a mechanism in that where you could still issue a 1099 payment and encourage your contractor to find a payroll option. That's not the most, I'll be straight, it's asking the musician to pay all of their share of federal taxes, but they will have the benefit of having their hours accrue towards unemployment and workers' comp. And that in a short step would be something I would, because you're absolutely right. It is hard to start crossing that threshold from being a small business that's just yourself to now all of a sudden have a staff. So I would just sort of kind of consider those two truths as you're looking to start bringing employees into your business.
And the third thing would be this concept of equity partners, and that is that a concept you're familiar with as far as keeping track of the hours so that when the money comes in, somehow you share the harvest at the end of the season. That's a different coverage. I'm seeing blank faces. We'll move on.
No, I think that's that would be a great term for a contract, is how that equity partnership is laid out on the back end. That's absolutely what that service contract should detail. And that would be, if you're looking for a way to work collaboratively and positively with a local, it would just be the plain and simple execution of that contract. And as long as everybody's in good faith and smiling faces, there's no reason for any problems.
I love all this practical advice. Thank you so much. And I'm seeing a lot of shout outs to our local libraries for the resources that they provide. So if you can see the chat, please take a look at those links. You might be able to actually save the chat as well. So, so you can reference that stuff later. Go ahead, Denise.
Oh, just because I've been dealing with the Small Business Association so much through COVID, I did not realize how many services that they offer until I have engaged with them so much. So you can make appointments and get a lot of advice from them as well.
Good point. I will put a link to their Seattle office in the chat. At this point, I would love to break up into some breakout rooms so we can kind of get into some more nitty gritty. We'll have Nate in one breakout room and Denise in the other, and I'm going to just go ahead and split us up randomly, but you should have the option to move between rooms. So if you have a question for one or the other, just find your way to their room.
I think that would work.
And I think that would work, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
We'll find out.
Yes. Okay, here we go. Let me get us there. Mm. Look at that. Here we are. The other room must be caught up in something.
There was quite the discussion going on about content.
Ah,
Quite a big topic to talk about.
content is king.
I'd like to share just a random. I got a text from folks I used to work with at the Showbox, and it was 20 years ago that the big earthquake hit, and we were freaking out and running out of the Showbox and into the street, which is probably not the best place to go, but 20 years ago, that giant earthquake hit Seattle, I guess.
Oh my God, I remember that so well.
Making somebody feel old who's not necessarily used to feeling that old there.
I had just arrived from Los Angeles, and now I thought, great, now I not only don't have sunshine, I still have earthquakes.
Right.
Yay.
I was actually in the Olympic Peninsula when that happened, and we felt the tremors and the aftershocks like boom right away. It was very confusing, especially out in Port Angeles.
Now, Alex, is this organization a part of the Seattle Film? Help me understand, what organization did I step into?
Oh, yes. That's a great question. Okay, so surprise, you're with city government here. So I'm with the Seattle Office of Film and Music, as well as the Office of Arts and Culture. So we do work across departments around the creative economy. So you may have heard of the Film Task Force. Is that maybe what you're thinking?
I think I participated at a KEXP event a year and a half ago in the summertime with good beer or something like that.
I think that was us.
I think it was.
It was like
Yeah.
a discussion.
Yeah, it was a panel.
Talked about emerging technology, VR, and that sort of thing. And
Yes.
got into
Yeah.
some discussion groups. Yes, that was us.
It was about three weekends or 3 events over the summertime, back when we could be less, closer than 6 feet.
Back when we could be together. Yes. Well, thanks for coming back.
Your marketing and email works.
Yes. Thank you for registering, so I had your email. Well, we're winding down here, but I wanted to make some space for any promotions of events coming up, any membership opportunities potentially from our speakers, and just thank you so much, Nate and Denise. You shared so much great knowledge and wisdom and like philosophy. So thank you. And I'm glad that we'll be able to offer this recording to folks who couldn't make it tonight. Either of you have any plugs to make?
And where do we find those workshops that you talked about? Because I need both of them.
Okay, so plug. We'll start there. For any musicians that may be out there, or anybody that knows any musicians, the Musicians Union has something called the Musicians Performance Trust Fund, the MPTF. And this is a national fund that each local gets a little slice of the pie of, and we are paying out for streaming concerts. And one of the wonderful things about United States workplace law is that we cannot exclude anybody from accessing this program. So if you would like to apply, it's like a grant application. If you know anybody or you are yourself a performer that would like to find a partnering business and talk about what it would take to get a streamed concert, safe, of course, streamed concert produced by this fund, please, that email address is there for you. So let me know if there's something you'd like to put together and we can start talking about how we can make that happen. The other classes, like I said, this is all really brand new stuff. We're looking to share these far and wide. Actually, the slides that I shared were part of content that's being rolled out from Alaska to actually Houston, we found out today. So it's starting to pick up steam. And hopefully there will be a more centralized hub for all this information. I'm actually waiting on a funding application to build the website, and I've been told that the person that approves that application is literally stuck in Texas in the snow and can't get back to New York. So hopefully all of that stuff will be readily accessible soon. But that email address, if you have any questions or want to set something up, just use that for the time being. And I'll share when more public facing stuff is up with Alex, and she can probably send it through the email list.
The interwebs.
There you go.
Mhm.
I'm
Thanks,
running out
Nate.
of words today.
And where
I guess my plug would be, if you are a local musician, go investigate Smash and see if you qualify for services. We would love to help you be healthy.
I just want to say just very quickly, Denise, considering today is Twin Peaks Day and you look like you were in the Red Room, I just want to give you some props to that. She knows what I mean.
I know. Do I need to move slowly or?
Speak backwards.
Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. I can't believe we didn't celebrate that as an office today, because it's like,
Seriously, yeah, it's like
That's a
July
shame.
or February 24th, 1989.
oh my gosh, Chris Swenson, I'm going to call you out tomorrow.
Tell him I said, yeah, hello from Twin Peaks.
so
There are some
Alex.
stories that probably can be told from that whole production
Oh, yeah.
arc that need to be unearthed and documented there.
So many.
There's something to follow up on. Bud.
Well, if you can't get enough of this financial talk, Women in Film, the local chapter here in Seattle, does a second Tuesday webinar, and their next one is on March 9th, talking about taxes as well. So whether you're in film or just want to dive in a little bit more, talking about stimulus payments, changes for this tax year, unemployment compensation, remote work or out of state work, they're going to get into it. And their featured speaker is Joanne Ort, who's a CPA. She was a previous Mixer speaker. So I encourage you to keep an eye on that link on the Women in Film website, or there's their Facebook page as well.
So two questions.
Cool.
How do I contact you? Because although I am a filmmaker effectively, I'm also now a TV producer apparently. And even though it's we don't watch TV, whatever, we have show that we're creating here in Seattle. I need help. Who do I talk to? Alex?
Yes,
I'm a
you're
good
right.
place
You
to
talked
start.
to Alex.
Yeah.
You're correct.
Okay,
I
that's
put
question
my-
number one.
Put my email in the chat window there. So
You did.
Hey, Jimmy.
There
Something
you
tells
is.
me this guy could benefit from maybe an introduction to Amy Lillard if he doesn't already have that name.
mm-hmm.
I would like that name.
Let's talk, Sky.
Copy
I'll
that.
hook you
Alex can
up.
set you
I'll
up
hook you
there.
up.
Alex can set you up.
Yeah, I met some wonderful people at your meetings in the past over at, not the 911. What was the other one up on Capitol Hill there? The other one. Question 2 from Denise. Thank you. My gosh, that was just a great get your shit together class. I love that. And where's the other workshops that I still haven't found those on the resume and the contracts?
That's the one that's that's the one that will be forthcoming. That's the one that's the funding and the website. And the curriculum exists. So if you'd like to, maybe we could set up like a little hang or something like that. And we could walk through some of those. Did you get my email from the chat?
I did. Thank you.
Let's just start there. Cause yeah, we can definitely figure out a way to present it.
And Sky is short for Skylar. But it's sky@madinthekitchen.com. So we're official. We have a website. No. Okay. Thank you. That was my 2 questions. And I'm looking forward to meeting Amy. That's mysterious.
Yes. And I see Bunny in the chat, linking to her Instagram. I hope you guys got a chance to exchange contact information. Once again, thank you so much, Denise and Nate. We will be putting this recording up on our Mixer website, themixerseattle.com. And you should be hearing from me again via email. Any last words? Oh, well, there's another Mixer coming up at the end of March, part 3 of our 3-part Business of Creativity series. We're going to be talking about marketing in March. So March 31st, mark that. The Mixer is almost always the last Wednesday of the month. So make sure that you're following the Seattle Office of Film and Music on your favorite social media platform.
I do have a plug. Am I too late?
You've got 3 minutes.
Okay, plugging Mad in the Kitchen. We are on March 20th doing Mad, I need more reverb, Mad Marchness. So we're doing a 2-chef cook-off about jambalaya. It's going to be fun. There you go.
I want to be there. I want to be there.
Yeah, let's send the link. Send the link. Send the link.
Madinthekitchen.com. You'll be there on your little 6-inch, mobile device wherever in the world. So yeah, it's going to be fun. But we're filming it in front of a 900-degree pizza oven right on Capitol Hill, 6 feet apart, all very safe. But food and fun are going to be flying everywhere.
Love it. I've been able to participate in some virtual cooking classes, and that has been like one of the best things about pandemic life is just getting to like work in your own kitchen and try out some new things. So thanks, Sky.
Well, that's actually our moneymaker right now. We've done executives with Amazon. We did 150 teachers from across the country. So it's and on. If you haven't heard about, Chris needs to hear about this on Zoom. No, not on. I mean, it's a concept. It's a platform called On Zoom. It's the next thing that is. You want to see it? You click the button, you push, you say your money, and
Oh, there's so many next things. I can't keep up. I'm old. Look at me. I have a white beard.
Don't tell him about Clubhouse. He'll faint.
No excuses.
Oh, I've already heard about Clubhouse. So, and Ello and so many other things.
Stay young, people. Stay young.
I try.
On that note, big heart to you guys. Thanks for hanging out and hope to see you next month.
Thanks, Alex, for all your hard work.
You got it.
Thank you.
Bye. See you next time.